Dom, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. It is a pleasure. So thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So we usually have human parents on this podcast, but you are a parent of note because of your gorgeous fur babies, one in particular.
Yeah. He's a pretty handsome guy. His nickname is Mr. Steal Your Girl and Your Dog, both Steal Your Girl and Your Dog. Sir Rock is... He's at home right now, and he's a special guy. He's one of one, similar to what my fur daughter that you met, Soka, a.k.a. Scruff McFly, was. They both are very unique individual fur kids, and I couldn't be more proud of a parent for these two little monsters. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're a great parent, too. And Scruff McFly had a huge impact on your life.
She has, from day one. It's funny, she came into my life when I re-entered in society after serving time in federal prison. I came home with a whole different mindset. When you've been isolated for so long, you just start to view the world very differently, as you should, from when you went in there. And so I came home with a very, I wouldn't say closed mind, but it was just a different mind where a lot of people felt like I wasn't capable of loving anymore. Like I was so hardened. And so my mom, who rescued or smuggled Scruff McFly from St. Thomas Island, because she was visiting St. Thomas Island at the time with her partner, and this little girl came up to her in that setting that they were, and my mom fell in love with those big, gorgeous brown eyes, and and so she brought her to the States, and she was having a hard time as a puppy adjusting to the other dogs in the house that my mom's partner had. He had 3 Chihuahuas, and they had
Chihuahuas are feisty.
They had a Napoleon complex about themselves. It's almost like they was upset that they wasn't the actors for the Taco Bell commercials, but they was definitely treating her as if she was Gizmo and they was the Gremlins. It was like trying to attack her a lot. And my mom would coddle her and put her in the bed with her a lot. And my mom's partner was against that because the other dogs wasn't allowed in the bed, but you are playing favoritism. So they used to fight about it. But she would put her in the bed because she was a puppy. She couldn't defend herself. And they would attack her, literally, like really try to hurt her. And so my mom was telling me that this happening. And this is around the time when I came home, I finally was able to get my own apartment out there. I was in a halfway house and I had to get on my feet and get a job. So I was slowly getting on my feet, and she was telling me what was happening. And I was on house arrest as part of my conditions of release. And I was like, well, I have a curfew on my house arrest. Just bring her to me. I didn't know what type of dog it was. I was just like, what else am I doing?
Had you had a dog before?
Yeah. I grew up around animals, and which is a whole different story on how in the 80s and retroing back to the 70s, 60s, how many families that come from inner cities and especially in the Black community was some of the original rescuers of stray dogs and cats. Like we would just open up our home to a stray cat or dog, like come on in. And now it's like a very popular thing to rescue, when a lot of Black families had always took dogs and cats off the street and brought them in as family members. So so we had a lot of those strays growing up. But here we are with Soka, Scruff McFly. I told her just to bring her over, and I didn't know what I was getting into. She shows up at the door, and I was like, where's she at? And she points down. Again, I have no idea what breed. I'm just like, just give her to me for now. Let me get her bigger and raise her, and then I can give you back to her. And this little fluffy white and brown Shih Tzu mixed with Pomeranian with the most Pixar Disney looking brown eyes looks up at me, and I instantly look down and I scoop her up. And she just gave me that look like, are you going to be my dad? I melted right away. And that's the first time my mom seen me crack a smile in years, and especially post-prison. She thought prison took my heart away. And that was the start of a beautiful, beautiful daughter-dad relationship that everyone online knows about.
Yeah. And it was that cliche question, but it was very true with you two on who was taking care of who.
Yeah. She definitely, which I discovered recently. So she transitioned 3 years ago, 2 weeks shy of being 15. And, you know, I was grieving hard, really hard for 3 years. And I finally, just this year alone, realized that she took a piece of my heart that I'm never going to get back, like 10% of it. And I'm okay with that. I finally came to the terms. Sometimes we have these special, very special animals or human animals that come in our lives where, you know, it's almost like seasons. And I finally, I'm at peace with that. But what I didn't realize what this little booger did, she didn't close the door to my heart. She kind of like left it open when she's like, I'm taking this 10% and I'm gone. And because of that, I have been a little bit more vulnerable than I usually am because, you know, my humble beginnings and more, I'm usually very good and usually good at vetting people, vetting situations. But she left that open. And because of that, I have had some unkind things happen when it comes to different things, personal and professional, that people try to take advantage of a person that just has a big heart. So I'm learning that, how to relearn that, because before Soka, it was hard to penetrate my heart. Post her, and I think she left it open because she wanted me to love again. And I had to respect that.
And now you're just a love puppy.
I am a love puppy.
Look at you.
I am. I have a big heart. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, now you have your boy Rock to take care of.
Yeah, Rock's the opposite. He doesn't have a heart. Rock is like, he reminds me a lot of me when I was younger. That's why I have such a big heart for him, because he's misunderstood. He's always he's always dominant, you know, like his dad used to be. And I always tell him, like, yo, chill. You don't have to beat up everybody.
And I have a rescue husky, and it's a common theme with huskies. Yeah. They're very independent and feisty, but often misunderstood. I always say that you're just misunderstood, boy. I get you. I understand. You have a good intentions. You just don't always put them out there the right way.
Exactly. They're very stubborn, very independent. Rock he reminds me, like I said, a lot when I was younger. So I think that's why I have such patience and compassion for him. And you get it. You have, you know, that experience with huskies where outsiders see you all and judge you as the fur parent, like as he's an extension of you. You know, like I get so many cold stares when they see, like, why can't he do this to his dog, or why that? Because and that's a good segue where people don't understand that, you know, I'm not in the belief of dominion over animals specifically. I think they're here to coexist with us. But we live in a society where everyone thinks that dogs, because of social media too, should all be well behaved with bow ties, be patio, be very obedient. And like, you know, and I do love in some capacities how we humanize dogs and animals, because it's just going to bring great conversations for other species specifically. And that's just going to help people make more of a stronger connection with animals instead of taking advantage of them by exploitation, by slaughtering for food and more. But the problem is people expect all dogs to behave like little humans now. And that's just not the case. We sometimes forget they're animals. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're not the perfect little human at times specifically.
I get that in the dog park. People are like, your dog just ran past me really fast. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, he's a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he hurt you? No. Yeah, right. Yeah. You're just being a dog. Right, gotcha.
Yeah, or the new fur parents are like, oh my God, he's roughhousing too much with my dog. And it's like, they're just playing with each other. Yeah. You know, it's okay. It's perfectly fine. They're panicking and franticing. So it's been interesting. The dog community has a lot of different complexities and dynamics, but saying all that to say, if you see a well-behaved husky, like truly to a T, like a traditional, let's say a German Shepherd that follows commands, I can almost guarantee you that husky was trained inhumanely.
Yeah, through fear.
Through fear, through maybe shot collars or whatever. Because huskies are not. They just have a wild side of them that
they're not easily
free.
trainable. You cannot train the prey drive out of a husky either.
You can't. Yeah. They're very interesting breeds.
So you just got to keep them well away from cats.
Yes, we have no cats in our home yet. And it took a while for him to transition out of even viewing small dogs as prey. Cause he has 5% wolf in him. And he likes to, it comes out. It feels like it's more like 80% at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but he's been a really great addition to my life and my lifestyle. And I'm happy he's in my life for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you're here today not just because you're an awesome dog dad, but also because you're a really inspirational vegan and you have one of the most interesting vegan transformation stories that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
A lot of people know it, a lot of people don't. Tell me where veganism came into play in your life.
Yeah. I mean, if you view the core principles and just, we all have different beliefs of what veganism is, but at this core, it's a lifestyle of peace and compassion. So it has always innately been in me, including when I was a kid. And this is a very well-known story, which I could get into in a second. But I have always had this view on meat products like chicken wings and more. And I would look at the anatomy and the bone structure of what I was being served and just like cringe. Just like I was just kind of intuitively seeing or knew. I just couldn't put my hand on it. And I did start to ask questions, but I was just chicken wings alone and pork chops, which is mainly a lot of what we grew up on and only thing we can really afford in those times, was not something I was happy with consuming specifically. And I even remember growing up, fighting with friends that would be boys being boys would take like little slingshots or any type of object, sticks, and try to hurt like stray cats or squirrels. And I would slap them across their head and fight with them about that. That was another form of my compassion. And even dog fights that was happening in my city. I would be this little boy stepping in the middle of these dog fight rings that was in the backyards of the alleys and more. And you had these older gentlemen, that I would have words with, but I'm a kid, so luckily they didn't take advantage of me and try to hurt me, but they did tell me, get the hell out of here. But there was times where I would try to break up dog fights. There were some times I was successful when there was younger folks, but saying all that to say is the compassion has always innately been there in me. And it didn't come full circle until I had to go sit down, what we call sitting down, in federal prison when I got arrested for my previous lifestyle of what I used to do in my teenage or my young years, which was sell drugs, specifically cocaine, in the sense of something that was a vehicle or a mindset of a way out of poverty, in that capacity.
Right.
But that landed me in prison, where I came full circle to this innate belief and internal moral view about compassion. And I was sitting in my cell that first week two, sitting there trying to make sense of how did I end up here? And because I was a first-time offender. I'd never been in and out of jail. I was in college for architecture and design. I was done with the dope game. I was done. I was doing everything right. I even had an entry-level position in healthcare. Because in those days, us college students would work full-time if we had that opportunity, and also go to school semester full-time hours. It's very unheard of now to do both. But here I was just trying to make sense of how and the why behind everything, and dealing with these consequences. And then and I got on my knees and prayed. and this childhood memory, this famous childhood memory that kind of was a breakthrough for me and who I ended up becoming, because I was trying to search for answers, and God gave me these. I received this messaging, praying to God. This childhood memory when I was 8 years old, my mom was feeding me chicken wings, and I looked at those wings, and I looked at her, and I looked at these wings, and I looked at my arms, and I was like, these look like little bitty arms. I said, I don't want them. And she was like, what? And this is in the 80s. It's kind of hard to tell a single Black mother that's a nurse, that's an LPN.
Yep.
They don't make any money as it is. She was an LPN pediatric nurse in the daytime and an LPN nurse in the evening for a nursing home. We stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment at that time. Me, my mother, and my 2 older sisters. There was 4 of us in a, let's just say, very not nice apartment that was infested with roaches and more. And, you know, we ended up getting into a little bit better living space eventually, because she saved up money to get us in a better scenario. But there is a very dark, humble beginnings of my story. Mm-hmm. And this memory came into me, and I looked at her, and it's not like she had Google at the time where it's like, well, how would I feed?
Well, exactly, yeah.
What can I feed this little boy? Like, you know, she's playing mom and dad. You know, I didn't have a father growing up in that capacity. And, well, she, being Maria, that's her name, Maria, was like, well, then you're not going to eat. If you're not going to, because I pushed it back. I didn't want it. And I'm a chip off the old block. And she told me always to speak my mind. And I was like, then I'm not going to eat. And we had like a standoff.
You did.
We did. We had a big standoff. But then she eventually went to the store and found some fish sticks. She just was following her intuition, like, what is wrong with this little boy? Yeah. And so she brought the fish sticks back, and I grew up eating a lot of fish sticks. Let's just say that, because what she made the connection was it was the presentation, mm-hmm. which a lot of us, even kids to this day, we see these foods, and that's why a lot of these food companies, big food companies, engineer with their food engineers and create these aesthetic products that is very consumable.
Right.
And if we all seen how this animal product gets to our table, from kids to adults, where we see it from the start to beginning, mm-hmm. of how you see this animal that's on pastures, then going into a slaughterhouse, and then being slaughtered, and then being highly processed, and then packaged and injected with chemicals and food coloring dyes just to get to our plate to look like it's consumable after you cook it up, and you're cooking up carcinogens and more. I don't think a lot of us will be eating meat in itself. We will be pretty turned off by it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing natural or organic about how we get that piece of flesh into our plates and then even into our system, which takes, by the way, up to 72 hours to fully digest, which we don't have the digestive system to be consuming these things. So here I was in my prison cell, making that connection, and then it's just like a light bulb went out. And it was in that moment I decided to do a hard spiritual reset. And I created a mantra that if it requires harm, then no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I never looked back. That was 24 years ago. Yeah.
24 years ago.
Yeah. I went vegetarian there, right there in prison. And then I went vegan eventually. So yeah, 24 years in this.
So 24 years of no meat.
Yep.
But you don't look, if you don't mind me saying, protein deficient.
I don't. I haven't withered. How did that happen, Dom? I haven't withered away.
Were you really big before or what?
You know, I was actually, when I went in prison, I was over 250 pounds, full of inflammation, overweight. You know, that lifestyle, American diet has so many problems. I look like a totally different guy. But I would say, always husky size, but I was a little bit overweight too. And when I changed my diet in prison right then and there. And I would trade my meat protein with my cellmates, and they thought I was crazy. They were like, wait, we didn't have the data that we have now. This was 24 years ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the data that we have now. And it was like, you sure, Dom, you want to give me your meat, your protein for my carbs? Because I just end up eating a lot of complex and simple carbs. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And now what we know, pretty much anything that's edible for mammals of all kinds is a source of protein. And now what we know, that all essential proteins come from plants, and you're just removing the middleman, the animal specifically. Plant protein is the cleanest, most superior form of protein out there that any human can consume. So I was kind of ahead of my time by eating these carbs that are sourced from plants, and I lost weight. My inflammation receded, and I got all the way down to I went from 250 to 230 really quick to 210 to about 200. And I think the lowest I got was a little bit under 200. And I ended up becoming one of the strongest guys in my prison, specifically because we will have what's called these lift-offs, where we'll do squats against each other, bench press against each other. So yeah, I became one of the strongest plant-eating dudes in prison, for sure, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you say about, people finding it easier, I guess, to eat animal products when they don't look like the animal, which is probably why, even with a cooked turkey at Thanksgiving, we're not leaving the head on because that grosses people out.
Yeah.
And still big meat eaters today, if they get given a whole fish on a plate, they'll be like, oh, no, can you take that back and debone it and remove the head? Because it's grossing me out.
Yeah.
So it's not that sometimes it's not that we don't care about the animal. I guess it's that we aren't making the connection between the food and the animal.
Yeah. A lot of us don't, because we live in a society that's full of distractions, but also big budgets that is pumped into advertising campaigns and more. And again, I think more so could we create this product once it's finished and done and dress it up and make it look very aesthetic. You just don't make that connection specifically. And you think all the time, this is just the way it always is. And it's not. And I always tell people when I'm giving my speaking engagements that, look at your hands, look at your physical attributes. This is made for picking. You turn this over, this is not made for clawing. You don't have the eyesight to see so far when you're like a true carnivore does. You don't have the smell, the senses. In fact, if a 800-pound hog was right now coming up to us in this interview and was just nudging us and pushing up against us, or let's even take a 1,500-pound cow that was just nudging you on your shoulder, what do you think your first instinct is? Like naturally, right away.
I mean, mine would be to hug the cow.
Yeah.
Or run. Either one. Depends what mood it was in.
Yeah. But the pet, to engage.
Exactly.
And
not to swing around and stab them with a knife, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Not to be like, steak. Yeah, I want to eat this animal specifically. So yeah, that's the thing. Once people realize what they're consuming, and there's so many ways to try to communicate that to them and show them that. For the most part, most humans would either adjust their diets or even consider it. And once you make that connection, for the most, you can't unsee it, you can't unhear it. It just changes you. It really changes you. At least it did for me. And it was the best decision I ever made. And I would never, ever, like so many vegans say, I wish I did it sooner. I really do.
So prison was a really transformative time in your life.
Yeah.
And it sent you on a completely new trajectory.
Yeah.
A trajectory that brings us to who you are today.
Yeah.
An athlete.
Yep.
An influencer.
An author.
An author. A first-time author.
Yes.
There you are. On the back.
That's me.
That's you. I mean, I was going to say, this looks like you.
Yeah, it looks, I know. I think that guy right there is a little bit more handsome than I am.
He's definitely a little bit younger.
We took a photo from like 20 years ago.
Like, can you make me like 25?
Yeah, for sure.
It says "Eat what elephants eat" on your t-shirt. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I started my first startup company, a lot of you all probably remember, it's called Crazies and Weirdos. Mm-hmm. We was one of the largest vegan clothing companies in the world. And we had a really impact influence in the community where we was rivaling Spiritual Gangster and more. I remember even Urban Outfitters trying to lease us out and license us and buy us. Like, we was doing really incredible numbers. But that story behind iwi, to keep it condensed, is I wanted at the time, I had a platform that was growing and I wanted to make an impact and influence to help raise funding for different animal initiatives. And one of the first ones I wanted to target was the poaching crisis that was happening in Africa with respect to the rhinos and elephants. And at that time, drone technology was very new, and very expensive. So was bringing on rangers and more. And I thought, what better way to bring awareness or even help with funding or any capacity that we can do than to do like a t-shirt campaign specifically. And a lot of NGOs wanted to work with me already because my platform was growing. At that time, I had one of the largest male accounts in the vegan and plant-based space.
In the social media world, right?
Yeah. Social media was, and that's when engagement was 30% and more chronological order. It was the golden years of social media.
The golden years, yes.
The golden years. And yeah, I thought, what better way to make an impact? Because I just was at the height of my career as a healthcare executive, working, and I lived in New York. And I thought, like, well, I'm always telling people to eat plants. And technically and biologically, the largest vegan in the world in terms of mammals are elephants. Mm-hmm. And they're the strongest. I was like, and it just came out like a light bulb, plants. Like, oh, eat what elephants eat. And so I was like, boom, ding, ding, ding. So I designed, my background being design as it is, I created this graphic, eat what elephants eat, and put it on a t-shirt in an effort to raise money. Because again, I'm a working professional at the time. I'm doing healthcare. And this is just something, me doing charity through my platform, trying to use my platform for influence. And I thought we was only going to sell about 100 shirts. I put it on my jacked torso at the time. I was super jacked then. And we sold over 5,000 units.
Wow.
In our first quarter. It went viral.
Did people wonder though when they bought the t-shirt why when they put it on, they didn't look super jacked as well? Like, does this physique not come with the t-shirt?
I think it made people feel like they were superheroes because we was being tagged from, when I tell you, Naomi, we hit every single continent, and the OGs out there that probably still have that shirt, it was the #1 selling vegan shirt in the world. Like, it was doing crazy numbers, like crazy numbers.
When I went to buy it, it was sold out.
Yeah. It was very hard to keep in stock specifically. That was the first shirt of many incredible shirts that we had coming out of the Crazies and Weirdos line company. And I'm really proud of that. And what I ended up doing when I moved to Atlanta, I started my second company, which was the sister company to CW, a very influential food company called Eat What Elephants Eat. I just borrowed from my own company that specific logo and trademark and created a new LLC because what I found happening as I was doing speaking engagement and moving into transitional as full-time entrepreneur and vegan athlete and more, I did some incredible things in the triathlon community and more. The disruption was happening, and people would ask me, okay, you got me. How do I go vegan? And then I would delegate or just refer them to these different websites and more. Because before back in the day, we didn't have like starter kits like what the team at Veganuary did, like incredible. We didn't have these other NGOs that had like, okay, this is how you get started.
Yeah.
We have blogs and websites. Again, this is early on social media. But then people would come back to me asking, well, no, I want to look like you. How do we do this? A lot of guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to create a company to help them transition. So I teamed up with an incredible company where we curated this database of recipes through the RDs that they had on staff, over 3,000 recipes. And we created this really great food and nutrition company called Eat What Elephants Eat, where we teach people, these subscribers, thousands of subscribers, how to transition to plant-based by making it not only accessible, but more importantly, affordable. So I'm really proud of what we did with that company, Eat What Elephants Eat.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Now it's a book, Vegan
now
Recipes for a Strong Body and a Gentle Spirit.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's correct to say that you were one of the first men who kind of debunked the idea that veganism isn't masculine.
Yeah.
That it's not something that's for men.
Yeah.
That it's only something that is probably for white privileged women doing yoga in California, right?
Yeah.
You kind of really debunked what veganism is and who it's for. And you very much made it not only accessible for different groups of people, but much more exciting, I would say, for men to get involved with.
Yeah, I'm proud of the original core group of us that came into the social media space before the community, as we all know today, has tons of influencers, like the OGs. It was just only like a handful of us, especially of color, that came into the space, just the passion of our heart, speaking what we truly believe in without an agenda, not expecting deals to happen, not expecting to monetize. There was no monetization back then. This was just us speaking, using the iPhone and using Instagram or any social media platform as what a digital megaphone, just to scream at the top of our lungs, leave animals alone.
Yeah.
So we did kind of make it cool and exciting. So I'm definitely proud of that, because I went on to go on a speaking tour and went on to be featured in a lot of media where I would speak. My talk is dubbed Redefining Masculinity Through Veganism. And that talk has done a lot of great work and has influenced a lot of men and women both to show that you can be masculine. Because now we live in a day and age where we have both genders that have masculinity and both gender that has veganism. But you don't have to have this traditional ideology of, especially when it comes to the men, that you need to eat meat, because that's just not true. I mean, I haven't withered away. You can be very masculine. I consider myself a guy's guy. But the only thing about it, I love animals, truly. And so I don't eat things I love, you know, in that capacity.
And then, I mean, men do like to think of themselves as protectors. And yet, you know, and so therefore it should be more masculine than anything to protect the most innocent amongst us.
Absolutely.
I think it was Damien Mander that said the more vulnerable the victim, the more heinous the crime to exploit or kill them.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what resonated with me about how it is truly terrible that we take the most vulnerable species of animals we can find, those that have the kindest nature and are least likely to fight us.
Yeah.
And we exploit them and abuse them and kill them for food products that we don't need.
I agree. It reminds me of one of the reasons why I stopped attending vigils. Specifically, I was one of the first to attend vigils. I got invited up to go to Canada when that team, Toronto Pig Say, started.
Right.
I was one of the first to do that years and years ago. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even, you know, it's my first time being in that type of capacity. But to see these trucks transporting these pigs into this slaughter facility, me being a man and being a human, just when you make that connection, when I tell you my energy shifted internally where I felt like I wanted to be the Incredible Hulk and flip this truck over and break out these animals. And shout out to the men and women that are able to document and go in these slaughterhouses. It couldn't be me. I would be arrested. And so I had to remove myself because I was so emotional because I just could not sit there and watch. And I remember telling the few people I was with I was very emotional that day. And I remember saying, I can't be that close to a slaughterhouse because innately the protector in me, the male, wants to run in there no matter the consequences and just let all those babies out. So shout out to the men and women that had the patience to do that. And let's be honest, some of them can get away with some of the things they are able to do. Me being a man of color, a Black man with a felony, that's not going to look good on me dealing with, because it's a federal crime to disrupt operations when it comes to the USDA and more. So I had to remove myself from that environment because I just know it's no way I can sit there and let that go down.
Right. And it's a smart thing to do because you're no use to anybody in prison. So you can definitely help more people to be healthier, more animals on the outside. We talked a little bit about ethics, which is a very strong driver for the reason you're vegan. Health as well. These are recipes for a strong body. Very healthy, very delicious. I've tried some of them. But aside from recipes, you also talk about, you have a section here called Connecting the Dots, which talks about veganism and factory farming and how they're tied together through the oppression of people. Environmental racism, other social justice issues, our planet. Why did you want to include those other elements in your book?
I think it's important for people to realize what you buy as a consumer. It may not have an impact in your home, but it's having an impact on other community, both economically, both through ecosystems and in some capacities, marginalized communities. For example, what's happening in Carolinas, they're bleed number 2 now, or they go back and forth between number 1, number 2, number 3 of the state with the largest production of producing pork and hogs. And UNC did a study on showing how these lagoons that are leaking into these environments are having an impact on those marginalized communities where they did swaps that was on the outside structure of their home, feces, just on the outside. And it even penetrated through those materials, whereas in the inside. And so some of the highest demographics that are going into these hospitals for these respiratory issues and sinuses and more, these issues happening is due to factory farming, specifically the hog farms happening in the Carolinas. And those farms are placed in Black rural communities. If more consumers know that bacon, and 8 out of 10 times your bacon is coming from a factory that's in a Black community where they don't have the resources or the funding or the advocacy to fight against big ag, I think a lot of people as consumers would not make that choice. So it was important for us to highlight some of this stuff that's happening, because I think you need to be informed as a consumer exactly what you buy as a consumer and the power of your dollar it truly does.
Right. And I think that's really important to talk about, because often non-vegans will say to me, you're so concerned about the animals, what about people? And it's like, well, actually, veganism supports people as well, because we build factory farms in Black communities, in marginalized neighborhoods, and we exploit these people as much as we do the animals. And not only do we build these factory farms in those communities, we also force people from these vulnerable communities to work in these slaughterhouses, in these factory farms, doing the jobs that nobody wants to do for a menial wage, often below the minimum wage. In many cases, it's free labor as well. It's slave labor. We're using convicts to do this work on a promise of keeping them out of prison. And it's absolutely despicable. And so, if people care about the oppression of other people as opposed to animals, then they should not be supporting these industries either.
I agree. And I think a lot of people don't realize, and we always forget, humans are animals too. And we are using a lot of undocumented workers and exploiting teenagers too that come from South America just to make a living for their family and loved ones. Because the typical American is not going to be in the slaughterhouse slaughtering animals. They feel like they're too much, I wouldn't say better, but it's just a lot of people that's not willing to do that job. And so, yes, veganism or even activism runs deeper than what's just on your plate. There's a lot of intersections there of oppressive systems fueled by capitalism and war that's having an impact on many communities that we need to continue to educate others about. So hopefully it can have a trickle effect with dismantling these systems of oppression.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really nice about this particular cookbook, because it's not just telling you how to cook, it's giving you the reasons why you might want to do that. And we know as long-term advocates that everybody's reason why they might embark on a vegan lifestyle is different.
Yeah.
Some people really care about the animals, but some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people care about the health, some people care about the planet, and some people, rightly so, should care about the human animals impacted by the industries that the purchases of animal products support. So I think it's really nice that you're encouraging people to learn a little bit about the impact of their food choices on these various things and make the decision for themselves about what matters to them so that they can then align their lifestyles with their values and cook accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, you said it beautifully, because one thing in there, in that book, there's recipes for everyone, from the single mom to the working mom to the college athlete to the activist to the junk food vegan to even the raw vegan. There's recipes in there for beginners to people that want to spend more time in the kitchen. Yeah. And there's alternatives too, where you don't have to always eat the whole plant. It's based on like my own eating, which is whole plant-based. But the difference between my whole plant-based eating is savory. It's not boring. There's seasoning, there's love.
There's a lot of color.
It's a lot of color.
A lot of
energy.
Yeah.
And a lot of beauty and love.
I see in here you've got Mom's plant loaf with skillet cabbage. Is it by your mom?
Yeah. A lot of there's some recipes in there that I veganized based on what I grew up eating from my mom, my aunties, even my own sister. My sister has what's called this jerk chicken recipe that she used to make. And by the way, my family now, they're not completely vegan, but a lot of them do eat plant-based because of me.
Right.
But there's recipes I veganize that are nostalgic to me, including
the wings.
The wings, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites, one of my first time cooking was making brownies. I grew up like baking before I started cooking.
Proper grandma, aren't you?
Yeah. I have a really nostalgic brownie. And by the way, this is not recipes that are savory. There's a lot of desserts in there.
Okay,
but I veganized this nostalgic Jiffy. If any of you Gen Xers and boomers out there listening, Jiffy used to have this very unique brownie mix that was, I would say, just as good as their corn muffin mix, that I used to love baking. That's when boxes was like 49 cents a box per that. But I used to bake these brownies. And so I veganized that. I was able to knock that one out the home run.
Yeah, I'm seeing the brownies in a jiffy.
Yeah.
You got banana ice cream, energy balls, cookies, lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Thank you. A lot of love went into that.
And who is this book dedicated to out there? Who do you hope that it reaches in the world?
I hope it reaches everyone that has a heart, everyone that has an open mind. I even hope it reaches people with closed minds specifically. It's a book that was created with no judgment of anyone, men or women that have that traditional lifestyle or diet when it comes to meat. But it's just a beautiful guide. And one thing I like about it, it's not like every other cookbook. This is a unique kind of hybrid book where I give you my why. It goes into very more details of my origin story on the reason I went vegan, how I became vegan. And we put a lot of information in there to help you identify your why in terms of transitioning. Because usually when people identify their why, they kind of stick with that new change in that lifestyle. And it's a story, I think, that can address so many people, and so many people can relate to it specifically. So I think we did a really, really good job of bringing this book home to the masses, and it's available worldwide everywhere, wherever books are sold.
Amazing. I bet your family are really proud.
Yeah.
You've come a long way.
I've come a long way. A long way, yeah, from being this kid from Chicago. Yeah, it's been a journey. It has. And the good news is my path has never been more clear, and there's some beautiful things on the horizon that I'm really excited about in the next 2 years that we're going to continue to show the world, and hopefully have influence. Yeah.
I think the most beautiful thing for me about your story is that you've shown that it's never too late to make big changes in your life, that life is full of surprises and twists and turns we don't expect, and that some of the best satisfaction we can find in our life comes from doing things to help others.
Yeah, it's true. And you can never judge a book by its cover, where sometimes when I meet people without them knowing my story and they see the things I have done or the things that what I'm about specifically, they are surprised that I'm an ex-felon and I used to do, some things in the streets. But you can't give up on yourself. You can't give up on your passions. Sometimes it's in us as humans to be very ambitious, and adversity really creates better human beings specifically. But yeah, never judge a book by its cover and never give up on people, because there's some really great people out here that just was dealt a bad hand and just need another hand or a couple hands to really get it right, to really get it right. Yeah.
That's good. And it's good to note about vegans too, because veganism is not an easy transition for everybody. And I think it's important to give ourselves grace and each other grace on that journey and realize that it might not happen overnight for some people.
What do you mean? It's very easy. You just eat some carrots. Just open up some bag of carrots, some cup of apples. It's easy. Like, I'm that vegan that's going to squeeze ketchup on everyone that's not. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. Yeah. No, it's not for everyone in terms of making an easy connection for sure. But there's so many ways now more than ever. I don't know if you remember how tofu was the only thing we really had to work with on all our recipes. And now you have so many alternative, or what I deem as transitional products, that can help people in their journey to eat vegan specifically.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think we need to encourage people to just try it out, try and make simple switches, eat the food that they enjoy, but a veganized version of it. And, if they slip up, great, but get back on board the next day and keep trying.
No, if you slip up, I'll come into your house, knocking on your door, dragging you out the bed. No, I'm kidding.
To do it. Yeah,
kidding.
For sure.
Totally
and I also heard that if there's any meat eaters out there that reckon they can take you on in a bench press or an arm wrestle, that you're willing to show them otherwise.
I mean, I'm definitely on back down for sure. Like I would go on record to say I'm definitely one of the strongest vegans. So if you want to play that card, I don't back down from that.
All right, good. So that's just a little word to everyone listening. If you believe you can take on a vegan, Dom Thompson is going to
clean too.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about some of you guys out there cutting corners and using enhancers and juicing. That's one thing I'll say I'm proud of. I have never cut any corners or taken any enhancers. I'm all natural, and I really dedicate and really wholeheartedly know for a fact that the things I've been able to do physically comes all from eating plants and plants only. Nothing else involved. Yeah.
And on the flip side, the carnivore diet seems to be quite popular on social media at the moment.
So cringe.
Yeah, I can see your face, how you think about that. I mean,
that and the homesteading, right? I mean, and granted, homesteading, as you know, it's in our it's kind of a little overlap into our ecosystem of what our sub communities and plant-based communities, but I think between the homesteading and the carnivore diet, people are definitely gravitating to it, just like people gravitated towards the vegan community. And I think everything has seasons. I think people will come to realize how unhealthy and unsustainable eating strictly meat, animal protein, and that's it. Some even more raw than others.
Yeah.
they're going to realize they're going to have some health problems and more. It's just not sustainable.
It really isn't. And it's actually becoming ridiculous to me. I saw a girl on Instagram the other day just biting into a block of butter and being like, this is so good. And I'm like, I do not believe for 1 second biting into a block of raw butter is
cholesterol,
good.
Biting into some cholesterol.
Yeah, exactly.
How is that healthy?
I don't know. I don't know. It's incredible what people believe on Instagram. But I'm glad that you're showing us the way with some beautiful recipes and some beautiful guidance.
Yeah.
On how to apply this beautiful philosophy to our lives.
Yeah.
And make them better.
Yeah. And thanks to people like you and GenV and everyone else for giving people the opportunity to make that transition through your own initiatives and also platform this beautiful lifestyle. A lot of us just sometimes limit ourselves just to talk about the food aspect. But I got to be honest with you guys, the spiritual, the way you feel spiritually and internally, your soul, your aura, your energy, it's such a beautiful feeling when you can go to sleep at night knowing that you did your best, but also knowing that what you consume is not of dead energy and has not been a part of something that once had eyes like you, once had a face like you, and just simply wanted to thrive like you. That's the most peaceful feeling in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
They have desires too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dom. I'm going to say it again. Please go out and buy this beautiful.
Please do. Please buy the book.
It's got some absolutely gorgeous recipes in there and some beautiful teachings as well, all under the beautiful name, Eat What Elephants Eat.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Dom. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Pleasure.